Welcome to episode 6 of that Grief Relief podcast. This week, I'm joined by Louise Jacobson, originally from the UK, managing partner at Brazen PR here in Dubai. And we've never actually met.
Never. I feel like I know you.
I know, it's so funny. That's just how Instagram works nowadays.
The wonders of social media. It's the devil, but it's also a blessing as well, isn't it?
It is true. I love it when I do finally meet people that I've always known on Instagram for a long time. And I'm like, you're real. And
you're an actual person.
How was your holiday in Bali? And it's so bad because you don't want to go down the stalker route, but we know.
Like my holiday in Bali is like 3 years ago. But yeah, it was great. Thanks for asking.
Back in 2017. Louise, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat because, again, through Instagram, I know about your mum, Marjorie.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know about her story because I love the fact, we got talking about it because I love the way you're so open about your mum's story and the whole celebration of her life. And I know you're wearing red today if you're watching on YouTube. Louise is wearing red.
Mother,
and there's a reason for that. So, and she's got a hashtag, which I love Marjorie for.
If you didn't know my mum, she would have needed a hashtag. Like she would have not been happy if she had not had a hashtag.
Really? Okay. Tell me about Mum Marjorie and everything that happened.
So her name was Marjorie Rose. She was 64 when she passed, and she was one of those people, if you met her even for a couple of minutes, you would never forget her. She's one of those people that would walk into a room, command the presence. She was always joyful, always positive, always happy. She loved her family and her friends. She was a real humanitarian. She taught us from early age, no matter the colour of someone's skin, where they're from, anything about them, they are, one of God's children. Right. And we're all the same. We're all human beings. So to never judge anybody. And she had a very, very wonderful, happy life. She was married to my dad since forever. They met kind of when they were very young and had this wonderful love story. They have my sister and I. I have a sister called Paula. So they had 2 children, and everything she did was just for her family. And she was a fantastic sister, aunt, friend, and mother, and just a really joyful, happy person. She was the sort of person who never saved anything for best. She'd be like, drink the champagne, eat the cake, go on the holiday, spend the money, just have that real joie de vivre. And that's what I try and live on in her legacy. Now I can do that, before I couldn't. And that's what, why I'm wearing red. It was her favourite colour. I never ever used to wear red, but it was her favourite colour to wear. Oh, really? Yeah. So I just started, when she passed, I got a few of her things. One was a big, beautiful red Mulberry handbag. And I just started wearing red. And I thought, this makes me feel better. So that's the hashtag story, Be More Marjorie, the
Be
red
More
story.
Marjorie,
So let's just have that joie de vivre in your life. Do something that makes you smile. Tell that person you love them. Do the thing that makes you really happy, because that's what she did.
That hashtag, it even when I've seen it and I don't know much about your mum's story, I'm like, be more Marjorie. It's almost kind of like, what would Jesus do, and what would whomever do? And it's like, be more Marjorie just really sums it up. And by the sounds of it, everyone needs to be a bit more Marjorie.
Just not care as much. Just do the thing that makes you happy, and that's the sort of person she was, literally, until she passed. So
that's amazing. And I don't know how she passed or her story. So if you wouldn't mind telling us about that.
Yeah, she had cancer for, I think, 13 years before she died. So it was a long battle. It started off with bowel cancer, and then it metastasized to various other parts of her body, and it was the sarcoma in her lung, which was just, she couldn't fight it. So there was 13-14 years of chemotherapy and tests and operations and scans every 6 months at the Christie. So our lives were governed by these tests and the all clears, and it was just you'd wait for these tests, and your whole life was just governed by it, for her and for my dad and for my sister and I. So it was a very long battle, but the one thing she never did, she never moaned or complained.
Be more Marjorie.
Exactly. She never, some people could have gone down the poor me route and, it wasn't going to get her down. And I think that was why she probably beat it so many times, was her positive mental attitude.
I was going to ask, were there many times, went into remission or did she, was it bad or?
It was bad for a while. She had a lot of chemo. She lost all of her hair, which obviously as a woman, you've got long hair, I've got long hair. Yeah. It's your crown and glory, isn't it? Yeah. So she struggled then. But then my mum, being my mum, got my hairdresser friend who's quite famous. He does a lot of fashion weeks to come and style her various wigs. Oh, and she gave the names, so she gave them different personas. And she's like, "Isn't your dad lucky he gets to date all these different women?" So her being her made it into something fun. And of course, there were sad moments when obviously she was bald, but her being her turned it into something wonderful and positive. And that's just how she lived her life, just finding the positivity and the happiness in everything.
And you would wonder after 13 years how much that would take a toll on anyone. Do you think she was doing it to be strong for you guys?
I think so. And I think we did talk about it, but I don't think she ever really expressed into how she was really feeling, because she was very much, I'm the mother and I will protect, you, me, my sister from everything. So I think it was my dad that probably only really knew the inner fear that she must have had driving to those appointments at the Christie, which is fantastic hospital in Cheshire, in Manchester, where my parents live. But each time she went to get the results or to have the therapy, she'd have her makeup on, her heels on, her outfit on, like ready to kind of face whatever was about to come. And then every time they'd go to hospital, he'd take her for a lovely lunch and, they'd drink champagne. And so whatever kind of life threw at them, they still celebrated the fact that they had that day.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was, and I was looking, because I had her anniversary of her death a couple of months ago, I was looking through her Facebook, and she actually got the all clear in the May. She passed September the 24th, 2018. She actually had an all clear in the May.
Wow.
And that was just around the last time she came to Dubai.
Okay.
So how quickly she deteriorated towards the end just took us all by surprise, because she got the all clear, and usually it's like every 6 months.
Yeah.
So to get the all clear and then to have deteriorated and to passed away, the 24th of September, it was just shocking.
Talk me through, if you don't mind. Talk me through that summer then, from that all clear to then obviously the September. Obviously, if you're over here in Dubai, that must have been tough.
It was. So she came over, I think, around the May, and she was fine. We had a wonderful holiday. She went back. I went back in the August, because we had a friend's wedding to go to in Ireland, and she was also coming. And I arrived, I can't remember what date it was, but I think it was the end of August, and she was feeling a little bit under the weather, a little bit tired, but that was nothing kind of out the ordinary. I went away for a couple of days to see some friends in Manchester, and I came back and she'd gotten a little bit worse. But again, she's prone to viruses and things because her immune system was low and all of that kind of stuff. So we weren't really, shocked. Then I ended up getting a cold. So I was really annoyed because it was Glitterbox that weekend in Manchester, because it's Manchester Pride.
Oh,
so I was so upset I couldn't go.
Yeah.
But actually that flu was the greatest blessing I think I've ever had, because I was with my mum for like the last time I saw her.
Yeah.
And she looked after me, and we watched like crime dramas, which we're both obsessed with, for like continuously over a weekend. And then she just kept getting worse. And then I think she went to the doctors, and she was determined to make this trip to Ireland to our friend's wedding. And I remember on the ferry, she started to lose it.
Oh my goodness, she went,
yeah. And we were like, don't go. And even while we were there in Ireland, we were trying to get to go to hospital, and she wouldn't go. And you could see her really starting to not be very well and to start to lose it. And then we came back from Ireland. She was very sick on the boat, and I had to come back to Dubai the next day. I remember saying goodbye to her, and she would always come to the window to wave.
Okay.
She didn't come to the window. And so I went onto that plane just thinking, I should be not coming back here.
Okay.
Then my dad took her to the doctors, and they immediately took her to the Christie. And they just said, look, she's really not very well. Her platelet level's very, very low. We're going to keep her in. And she was in there, I think, for a couple of weeks. She had family come and visit. Then my sister made the decision to go back.
From where?
From Dubai.
Oh, your sister lives here as well? Oh, right,
so,
okay.
Sorry, my sister lived there.
Yeah.
So I went back first, and my sister came back because we both had work. And she said, I'm going to go back just to help Dad and just to see Mum. And then I booked to come, I think, the week later.
Yeah.
Then I just said, I'm going to bring my flight forward because she was getting worse, and she'd come home by this point, and she had Macmillan nurses out and everything, and she was just out of
God
it.
love Macmillan.
Yes, exactly. And she was just out of it. And I bought my flight forward. Okay, so I'm going to go like the next day. And I remember I was walking into the Mall of the Emirates, about to go and see a client. And I remember speaking to my dad, and she'd been out of it for a few days, and she'd heard my voice. And she said, give me the phone. She said, I want to speak to my daughter. And she just didn't sound like my mum.
Really?
And I really can't remember what the conversation was. I think she just said she loved me and put the phone down. And they were the last words she ever spoke. Because I flew out. Dad was like, you need to come home now. And I didn't make it back in time.
Oh, no.
So before I'd even left to come to Dubai, I got the next flight out, but that wasn't the night flight to go to Manchester. And I didn't make it back. She'd already passed.
Before you'd left, sorry.
Before I'd left, but we didn't know.
Yeah.
So my sister and dad made the decision not to tell me.
Yeah.
So she passed 5 o'clock in the afternoon UK time, so it had been at the time 9 o'clock here.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to go on the flight, completely beside myself. And one of my friends, God bless her, Annabelle, she flew back with me.
Oh.
So my friend Helen had spoken to my dad and Paula, and she'd come round. And they called me. They made sure I had someone there to say, you need to come back now.
Yeah.
So we arranged to move the flight. Annabelle flew back with me. And then I remember you have an out of body experience, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on. You're in this mental state. And I didn't know she'd passed at the time. So I bought loads of things at duty free. And she loved Lancome Genifique serum. So I don't know. I think I was going to bring her back to life with all this Lancome products. I don't know what I was thinking, but you're not in your head, are you?
No, but...
And then my friend had told all the staff. So all the staff were clucking around me, and they were wonderful. And I just remember landing at the airport. My sister and my dad, their faces were okay. They weren't,
okay,
crying.
They came to meet you.
Came to meet me, got to the car. My dad just said, darling, I'm sorry, she's gone. And I just said, what do you mean she's gone? He said, she's gone, darling. She passed yesterday. And I just looked, my legs gave way. I fell on the floor and buckled and just screamed. And I just saw my friend, because she didn't know, and she just turned and cried, and then got in the car and drove back to their house in Cheshire. And it's just surreal.
Surreal is exactly the right word.
It's just a feeling I'll never forget. It's a feeling I'll never get over. And from then on, for about a month, I don't feel it was an out-of-body experience.
Really? Did you stay at home stay in the UK for that time?
Stayed at the UK. And then you just and then the next thing you know, you're organising a funeral. And you're like, what on earth's going on?
Yeah. Sorry to ask, how did you feel about the fact that your dad and Paula had decided to not tell you?
At the end of the day, they did the right thing, because my dad was like, I couldn't bear you getting on that plane knowing, and there's nothing you could have done. You couldn't have got back here any quicker. Yeah. She said it was literally a couple of days deterioration. He said, if I'd have known, I would have said, you need to come back now, drop anything and just get back. But we didn't know until she'd literally got to the Christie, and they were like, it's not going to be long now. And the fact that I didn't make it back, I'll never forgive myself for that.
But do you think...
I'm at peace with a lot of it now.
Okay.
I'm kind of 90% forgiving myself and 90% understand. And there's nothing anyone could have done, but there's a part of me, until I die, I'll never forgive myself for not being there for her and for my dad and my sister.
Yeah.
But there's no way we could have known. But unless it's hard to explain to them, because they're like, Louise, no, it's just how it happened. You couldn't have known. But I'll never ever forgive myself.
Yeah, it will stay
That's
with
a
you.
Demon that just has to stay with me.
Yeah, which is something that I spoke about with my brother in terms of my mum and I used to fight like cat and dog. We were best friends, and I am so eternally grateful that our last Skype conversation was a really great one. It was so funny and whatever, because I can imagine, as Russell said, there must be so many times when you have an argument with someone, hang up, and God knows what would have happened. And
we did, like, I was getting annoyed. I'm quite short-tempered. So I was getting annoyed with her because she was ill and then she wouldn't let me help her. So we had some friction while we were away. So then obviously that plagues you. But the fact I didn't come back and I wasn't there at the end to say goodbye and know that was the last time, you know, I'll never forgive myself for not being there for her as her oldest child, you know.
How have you worked through that then? Because you say you've made peace with it.
I have. Initially I spoke to, my mum was very religious, she's Catholic, so I spoke to the priest who helped, and he was also a dad, and he said, she was your mum, she would have forgiven you for anything you ever done, and she loved you, and I know she did. She would have forgiven you for anything, so you must forgive yourself, otherwise this is just gonna, you know, eat you up to the day you die, and that's not what she would have wanted. He said you must make peace with that. And then my dad actually said to me, if you don't forgive yourself, you don't forgive me, because I should have got you back earlier. So then there's this whole vicious cycle.
Oh, Dad, great little guilt trip.
Oh, yeah. His dad. But he's right, though. It's like, so if you do that, then you're not forgiving me, Louise, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I was the one with all the information. He's like, I responded as quickly as I could, as best I could. So, but I still wasn't there. And I'm mostly at peace with it now. It's something I've worked through with my psychiatrist that I started seeing 18 months ago. Because
that's what I was going to say. It's still so new.
It's very new. It's
only been 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's 2 years. So it is very new. It's very raw in some ways, but in some ways it's fine to talk about.
Okay.
That's just grief for you, isn't it? It's not this linear. Nope. Stage 1, you're going to be in shock. Stage 2, it starts to sink in, and then stage 3, you're in stage 5 now. So you know, it's not. It's like here.
It's just a scribble.
It's a scribble, isn't it? And so you don't know where you are half the time, and you'll be having a brilliant day one day, and some days I don't think about her all the time. Yeah. Some days I can't stop thinking about her, and I feel I'm back to square one. And that's just the grieving process. And I had a brilliant analogy because, like you, I subscribe to every single like grief Instagram account and podcast and website I could find just to connect with other people who got what you were feeling. I remember seeing one, and it's still stuck with me to this day. It's like learning to dance with a limp. And that's how I feel like my life is, that I'm dancing, I'm finding joy, but there's something just not right.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, that there's some part of me that's not fully happy or joyous or enjoying life. Maybe that will, because it's still so new, maybe that will get better. But that's how I'm where I am, like in my stage of grief.
2 years seems a long time, but it is definitely not. No. Obviously, you're extremely close to your mum and the love of a mother to a daughter, but your dad, I mean, they were, as you say, they were married forever.
Yeah.
How did he cope, and how is he coping, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, he's doing really well. They it was their 44th wedding anniversary a few days ago.
I saw you post,
Yeah, so he was obviously very sad, and he was an amazing husband to her. He nursed her, literally sickness and in health, nursed her through those 13 years, didn't miss any hospital appointments or anything. And he's doing well, and I think when you have someone you love, a parent or a partner or a sibling that you know is got cancer and had it for a long time, I think at some stage you just know that the inevitable is going to happen. And I think maybe that was a little part of why he seems to have handled it so well. But again, he's a typical British man. Okay. I'm fine, and yes, of course I'm upset, but you know, and he's our only parent now, so I think he maybe hides a lot of that from us. So we just see him as being really strong, and of course he gets upset and he gets sad and emotional. We try to talk to him about it, but he's got that typical British dad, you know, old school mentality. You know, we have to move forward and things. So, but yeah, it's obviously heartbreaking because that was his other half.
Yeah, of course.
And he was quite lost for a while, but he seems to have been doing better.
Was that one of the reasons that you stayed in the UK for so long after your mum passed away?
We actually were only back for 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
So it was, the funeral was a little while to get sorted.
It's weird, sorry to interrupt, because I had the same thing with the funeral. I couldn't get my head around why it was taking so long.
I know.
Totally forgetting, and this is an important thing, is totally forgetting that other people die.
I know.
All the time.
What do you mean you booked up?
Absolutely.
It's my mother,
yeah,
know.
and in my mind, I'm like, what do you mean? I can't. My dad died on the 12th of December, and we were offered his funeral on Christmas Eve, and we said, no, we'll just stick a pin in that for now. We'll do it later. But it was so weird for me to think that other people had experienced death, when it obviously in our heads it's like that is the only thing happening right now.
Yeah, and I think it was 10 days or something. She passed on the 24th, and her funeral was October the 5th, and I think it just seems like an eternity.
Yeah,
I think in actual fact it probably wasn't. But then it was just really weird. So they asked, you know, to pick out the dress, and you're like, and my dad couldn't do it, so I went upstairs and just did it, and I picked out the dress that I picked out for her to go to the wedding. My friend for 3 weeks ago, and I was like, we were here talking about what you're wearing 3 weeks ago, and I'm picking up to put you in a coffin. And then, you know, he was like, what sort of coffin do you want? And I just couldn't look. I said, I can't look at this book. I remember my little sister, and she's being brave, and she's just like, this makes me well up. She's flicking the page of this catalogue. She went, I think this one would be quite nice. And I was just like, you know, I can't deal with this
to make.
Yeah, can't deal with this right now. But we got it done, and you know, the undertakers were lovely, and we had she had so many friends. They all like rallied around, and I had so many friends. They all came to help as well. But it's weird. There are funny moments, even then when you're like at your rock bottom and you're just like, what on earth is going on? There are really funny moments that happen that still make you smile, and that's like what she would have wanted.
Okay, could you want to share any?
Yeah. So there was she loved jewelry, so one of the rings that I was wearing at her funeral, it's this diamond ring, and it goes all the way round.
Okay.
But it's kind of quite like jaggedy, so it can scratch. So we did like the receiving line of everyone coming to say, you know, sorry and stuff, and my best friend was just literally right behind me. She didn't leave my side all day, Mammy. And we told everyone to wear like bright colours and make it fab. Everyone wear your glammiest outfit ever. You know, we don't want to be, you know, this morbid sea of black. And I was hugging people, and then my friend just went, doll, you might want to be careful because your mum's ring is catching everyone's like jumpers, and you've just ruined like your relative's cashmere jumper.
Oh no.
So this massive bit of fluff was going around this ring. I was like, oh God. And she just just be careful, doll. Shall I hold the ring? I was like, yeah, because I was like hugging people and going like this, and then they're like,
brilliant,
wrecking everyone's clothes.
Brilliant.
She's like, do you want to just stop doing that?
They'll get back from the funeral and be like, what the hell happened here?
So there's those little things like that. It has to make you laugh, doesn't it?
Well, if it doesn't make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and you're already.
So I was just like odd things like that we just remember, just you know, just laughing at the time. And the day of her funeral was almost like euphoric. It was an out-of-body experience, but kind of how we called it her after party. Not awake. She would have wanted a party. We had a DJ.
Wow.
There was lots of champagne. It was a celebration of her life. But then it's not really hit you, has it? So, no. And then the day after was just horrific. And then we just decided, look, let's just go to Dubai. Let's just get back in the sunshine and just try and, you know, get out of Cheshire and get out of the house, and I think that helped just coming back here. Dad came with us for a while.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we just brought him with us just for a couple of weeks.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. And then at least you can all still be together. Did you and Paula live together, did you say earlier? Right, okay, fine. Yeah. Oh, then that would have been...
Yeah.
I always try and think of the right words, but
there isn't.
Wonderful was what I was thinking, but just like
it was better to be there, just out of it, especially for my dad,
and to have that kind of time together as well.
Yeah,
was that also a difficult period where you all there supporting each other?
It was, and we all say to each other, it still is, because when it's just the three of us, there's this I call it like the empty chair. Right. The fourth chair is empty. You know, when you go for a meal, it's always a table for four. It's never a table for three, is it?
Yeah.
So that's very, very obvious that she's not there. When there's other people around and stuff, it's not as bad. But when it's the three of us, it's very, very present that she's not with us.
Yeah.
It's just literally there in front of your face. And I think that's where we struggle sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure. And still, because like I said, 2 years is a drop in the ocean in terms of... but it... again, important, if you're new to this episode and you've just jumped in on the podcast, is that some people get over it immediately. And not in so much that it doesn't mean that you've... Sorry, there's a leaf blower going on in the background. It's really loud. There's no right or wrong way, and I know I say it all the time, but I know people that are 15 years down the line and still well up when they speak about that lost loved one. And then, of course, you've got myself and my brothers, where we can still sort of have a laugh and a joke about it. And to me, I think the latter is important, of course, and that was the idea of the whole podcast. Yeah. Louise, you touched on, and I hope you don't mind me asking, you touched on that you started seeing a psychiatrist as part of your grief relief. Yep. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So I saw a counsellor just after Mum passed away, who was great, but then it was recommended that I go and see a psychiatrist, someone, I guess, more of a medical knowledge. I think they'd obviously assessed me and just spotted a few things. So I went to see the psychiatrist.
Because psychiatrists can prescribe medication.
Yes, and I think they'd obviously spotted some depression. So I was diagnosed with severe depression May 2019. Because what had happened, again, British, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to see how I get on. And then you go through this like strange euphoric stage. We came back to Dubai, then we had people coming out to see us all the time, so we had friends coming over. So there wasn't really, and I went back to work straight away pretty much, so I just kind of like carried on and didn't try and think too much of it. And then it's called the grief fog, there's articles written about, and I could feel the fog coming probably around like about 6 months after she passed, and I could feel, Harry Potter, the Dementors, and that's how J.K. Rowling described her.
I've never seen Harry Potter, don't hate me.
Okay, I need to leave now.
Sorry.
I must leave. No, but it's how she described her depression. It was just these black beings just sucking the life out of her, and you just feel heavy, and I just started to really feel not myself. So I've always been someone that's a very good friend, good listener. I'm there for everybody, and I would benchmark everyone's. Like if a friend was having a bad day, and I'd be like, "Well, your mum's not died, so what are you talking about?" And you can't be like that, because you can't. It's awful, isn't it? They're like, and there's something. Oh, I've had an argument with my boyfriend, and you just be like, "Sorry,
yeah, my mum died.
You're absolutely fine. What are you talking about?" Or, I really miss my mum. You're like, "Well, at least she's still alive." And this was just like how I was with everyone, and I just didn't care about anyone's feelings really, and I was like, this is not who I want to be.
Interesting that you recognise that, though.
I could start to see it, and I was just so angry all the time. So I went to see a psychiatrist in the May, and he just took one look at me, and just after 10 minutes, he's like, I can see you have got depression, and I suspect you've had it for a while, actually, because there's 13 years of this grief process that you've had and you've not dealt with. It's like, have you spoken to anyone before about it? And I was like, no. Why would I have needed to see someone because your mother was dying for 13 years? You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense now when you say.
Do you shoulder shrug? Oh, you just did it, just as I asked. Isn't that a weird thing that we do?
Weird.
Yeah, no, it's fine, shoulder shrug.
Yeah, and then I it's just how I've always been, and because my mum was so strong, I think I wanted to be strong for her. So he died against with depression, and I went on medication, and that took a while to kick in, and then that's when that kind of the fog started to lift, and I became more motivated. I became me again a little bit, but I just remember just sitting there and people talk about their problems. I'd be like, oh, shut up, you've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And I'd just retreat, I'd not want to go out too much, and it was, the depression, and work would be so busy that would take everything out of me, and I'd come home and just want to sleep and watch Netflix and not really want to do much. So he really helped talk about, everything that was going on, and I shared lots of things with him. And I went on medication for a while, which you needed to just to keep going. Yeah. And that was a real turning point, was when I started to see him, and to really have someone that could deal with my feelings in a professional way, because I had friends that had parents passed over, but no one really gets how you're feeling. No. And I even though my sister and I shared the same parents, I couldn't relate to her grief journey. I could a little bit, and that's what he said. He said, you're experiencing different things in different ways because you're all different people. Yeah. So I felt confident in having this, medical professional help guide me, rather than just my mates trying to, say things.
And they do, and friends will try.
And they're amazing, and they are amazing. But, seeing him, and he's a very straight talking Mancunian. That was quite refreshing to hear. And he calls a spade, and he's funny. So I looked forward to our sessions, but he was like, I need to give you some medication, and it's something I'm not ashamed to say, I've been on. I've just recently come off some of it, so that's good. But that was the real turning point, is recognizing the fact I'd really started to let the fog come in, and I wasn't myself at all.
Like I said, it's interesting that you were able to recognize it. Did you make the decision to go to get therapy yourself, or did someone recommend it? Was there any hesitation from your side initially?
No, I didn't go and see someone for a while. Then I thought I best had, and then they said, I think you need to go and see someone, a psychiatrist, obviously, to prescribe some pills. But I wasn't hesitant at all. There's no, for me, that I don't know why I didn't do it before, to be honest. There shouldn't be a stigma against it, and I don't know why just people that are experiencing life don't have someone to talk to you when you go to a doctor when you're not well. I mean, we're still experiencing COVID, there's people have got, people's mental health, which I'm glad is, never been more of a topic now. And I really hope that even if you haven't lost a parent, even if you feel that you're feeling down, do go and talk to someone. And I really wish I'd done it earlier, because it might have saved me a lot of pain and confusion, because there's some things now that, I have a fear of abandonment, and I have insecurities. And even though to you and to the outside world I might be this wonderful, absolutely, like confident, happy person, there's the part of me that really isn't. And that's been a lot of the 13 years journey with the cancer I had with my mum, because I never really addressed it or dealt with it too much to anyone. I was there for her, and it was this 6 months lifespan that we had. And you would work up to the result, and then you breathe a sigh of relief, and then it would be like, so that damages you. And I never really dealt with it at all. So then he's like, this is what we're all having to deal with. Yes, the loss of your mother, but also this. And it has impacted you. And here are the ways it has. And, like, and makes sense.
you hear the term, like, there's a lot to unpack. You hear that a lot now, and I think that's so true when you do see a counsellor. I've always been very open with regards to my grief counselling, and then other grief that I've experienced more recently, going back to my counsellor. Hey babe, it's me again. And I do that. I'm a sucker for a dad joke. Thanks, Dad. That's the legacy he leaves with me. And when you leave the doctor and they say, see you soon, I hope not, and you kind of do that. So when I reached out to my counsellor again, obviously she was extremely professional, of course, but to me I thought, oh gosh, she's going to be rolling her eyes and thinking, how much more can this girl go through? But yes, it's and the reason why I was hesitant to go to therapy was because I didn't want them to unpack stuff, because I thought, I don't want, and again, I've only got this from movies and TV. They're going to say, oh, you've got abandonment issues, or you've got daddy issues, or you've got this, and because your parents divorced. And I thought, I didn't want that.
No.
I was fortunate that not all of that came out, but there were some things. But then it was those actual cliche, but actual light bulb moments. And I don't know if you had the same thing in your sessions where you're like, oh, it kind of makes more sense. And then you can deal with that better yourself.
And then it's things like trust issues, because it all comes back to this fear of abandonment and the fact I lived this life that someone, my mother was going to go at some point. And that was then the reason why I maybe didn't have a relationship for a long time. Right. And it made sense. And we did need to talk about those things. It's like, I do need to talk to you about them, because you've got to live the best life you can now, and I want you to feel emotionally happy and emotionally content, so we do have to talk about all these things. So I was like, oh, I came here for grief counselling. Then I telling me I missed this and this. Sorry. And he's like, no, I am going to.
It's the worst. Yeah, my first 3 sessions of grief counselling didn't mention my dead parents. I was like, hello. This is total change of schedule, but purely because you've touched on it.
Yeah.
It's regarding an email that I had in, or rather a DM. And I normally save these till the end, so we haven't finished yet, but it's just what you touched on. Someone messaged and said, hi Katie, your podcast very much made me look back on my journey with loss, being so young when I lost my dad, but how grief and loss at such a young age has affected all aspects of my adult relationships. The overwhelming feeling that people will eventually leave me, I carry all the time. So sometimes I push and push when I'm scared, so that I feel I can manage how and when that will happen.
Exactly.
Counselling over the years, both on my own and with my husband, has saved our relationship. I am very pro therapy.
Yeah.
How weird that.
Yeah, it's so true though.
It's like really you wrote that, actually.
I know. It wasn't in the email bit, but it's very true. But it didn't even twig in my brain that these things were connected, and the effect that the 13 years had on me was going to obviously come out in a different way. Because keep calm and carry on. I was still going to work, doing all the things, but then that's going to find its way out in some way, isn't it? Because it can't not.
Touching on work, you work in PR, in public relations. I can barely speak. In the UAE, I know how stressful that is. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's stressful around the world, but I've only experienced it here in the UAE. I can't even begin to explain how it's stressful that role is. And I know you're a senior member within the company, but were there any times when you thought, I can't do this, but I can't explain it to anyone because it's not a physical outward injury and no one's gonna, this whole mental health in the workplace situation. Was there any situations like that?
There was, and I was very lucky to have a really great understanding team around me, but I went to work really quickly. I think I had 3 weeks I was back work 5 days a week,
including when you were in the UK. So 3 weeks.
So I was online in the UK, and then after the first week I went and spoke to my team, checked everything was okay. I was back in the office 3 weeks after. I went back 5 days a week doing events, which, as you know, event season is from October to April, and I just went full throttle. Was that the right thing to do? I don't know, but it's just felt right for me. But then, of course, the fog came and my motivation started, decreasing a little bit. I was still giving my all. But then that was another thing my psychiatrist saying you're giving your all to work, and then you're so tired and exhausted and drained, you haven't got time for anything else. And he said you need a balance, so you need to be kind of thinking of you and your personal life and what you want more out of your personal goals, not just giving it all to work. So that's when I started thinking, right, there needs to be a balance. And actually I introduced a mental health mandate in our company, which I think we're one of the first companies in PR to do that.
Okay.
That came from my own experience.
Okay.
That just, some days we can't just perform like monkeys. We can't just turn up to meeting and do what's required because of something, And I remember I was supposed to go to Abu Dhabi for a big meeting, and I did actually make it, but I had a really bad panic attack that morning about my mum, and I forced myself with every, being in my body to get in the shower, to get in the car, and I don't know how I did it, but I should have just stopped and allowed that emotion to happen rather than force myself to just, plaster the smile on my face and go and do the meeting. So I thought something needs to change, and that's why I introduced a couple of mental health policies for my team.
Okay. Such as, if you can...
Yeah, no, that's fine. So they're all entitled to a mental health wellbeing check at the Lighthouse Arabia, which is a fantastic centre for grief.
In here in Dubai.
Yeah, it's amazing in Jumeirah. They have wellbeing hours, so they have 2 hours a month where if they just feel that they need to leave early or come in late, they can do. We have Wellbeing Wednesday where we just check everyone's okay. How's everyone doing? Is there anything particularly stressing you out?
Nice.
They have duvet days, so you can take, just a last minute holiday that comes out your holiday allowance if you just feel you can't face that day because something's just not happening for you. And there's a few other things.
Amazing.
Just to recognise that, we are human beings.
Yeah.
And we're not performing monkeys 5 days a week, 9 hours a day. And if you can't, if you don't feel your best, you're not going to do your best. So let's just allow ourselves to have those moments. If we're not, just, okay, fine. Well, I can't do this today. So I'm just going to let you know. And
I would never have thought to ring up and say, hey, if you were my boss, hey, Louise, I'm so sorry. I cannot do today, my head or whatever, because I would then worry that my manager would be like, what are you talking about? Get in. We've got meetings, we've got pitches, we've got clients.
Yeah, I mean, my team are really good, and they don't do it just before a pitch, thank goodness, or a client meeting. But I think the younger generation, because obviously PR is full of younger people, the millennials, they're very good at sharing their feelings, and mental health is very important to them. So that's one good thing the new generation has taught us to be a little bit more open about how we're feeling, and so they are quite open about sharing those things, whereas I guess our generation, you'd be like, you get to work and you will work that day and you will leave till 7 o'clock. That's not right, though. And I think this is one of the things of COVID, is that you don't have to be at an office for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. And yes, it's been incredibly stressful for all of us, but there have been some positives. People can work from home, spend more time with their families. You're not having to be chained to your desk. You can just enjoy a little bit more of, get the commuting time back, especially everyone living in, my friends in London, they're like, I've got 3 hours of my day back
at
the minute.
God,
so because of the commute. So I think the mental health thing for me is very important. It's a conversation that should happen. And unfortunately, it took the death of my mother to really make me talk about it and think of it as an issue. But I have, and so I wanted to at least make that into something positive.
Absolutely. For
my team, and that's something they're very pleased of.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that you have brought it into the workplace. As the podcast goes on, I'm actually going to be having a guest on. His name's Ben Edwards, who is a mental health in the workplace specialist.
Amazing.
Because, and I'm not, again, I've only got really strong experience in the UAE, but it's so strange that it's just not kind of seen and recognized and understood. But if you walked in with a broken leg, you'd get sent home. But a broken brain, for want of another expression.
Yeah, and my psychiatrist said, you've experienced the death of your mother is, if you want to put that in physical terms, it's like you should be in intensive care.
Oh, wow.
So if you, mental wise, that is the equivalent physically. So you going back to work and you're cracking on with your life and everything, would you do that after you've been in intensive care? No, you wouldn't. But we can all understand what intensive care is, but we can't understand it when someone's mentally got depression or going through grief. And this is the thing, it's people don't understand, and you can put a smile on your face and people don't understand what's going on in your head.
How did, touch on it, but how did Paula deal with everything, kind of, because you're both here?
Yeah.
Did she deal with things, because you said you grieved quite differently?
We did. She was, some days, the stuff I crumbled at, she was really strong at. So like a lot of the stuff in the funeral, and I'm the older sister, so she did the post on Facebook, she did a lot of the stuff with the undertakers, and then she got really sad. Then I was able to help her. So luckily it was like at different stages. Nice. Someone felt stronger and then someone didn't, so we're able to help each other. But yeah, I'm incredibly proud of what she's done. It's taken us a while to get to this stage. I mean, last night we put a Christmas tree up for the first time since 2017.
Oh, wow.
It was very emotional because my mum loved Christmas.
Oh, really?
And I actually found my the last Christmas card my mum wrote to me. My sister had kept it in a box, and she'd said, look what I found. It's in her handwriting and everything. And I was like,
amazing.
Which was like a little stab to the heart, but it was also beautiful to see. And obviously I'm going to cherish that forever.
Yeah, I bet.
But I still can't watch videos of her. I still can't hear her voice. Her ashes still remain in some hideous plastic container.
Isn't it weird?
My dad's
if
house.
You don't have this urn, it's awful, that plastic thing.
I don't know when we will scatter them. I think it's just too raw, too soon. We've not done anything commemorative for her, like a tree or a bench or anything, apart from the Be More Marjorie hashtag.
I was going to say, I think
we've not done anything. It's just too much.
But the Red Day and the celebration of. Weird word, but the day that she passed, but the celebration of her life, and it was all over your Instagram. I love the fact that all of your friends, your family all got involved. So, we have to have a cup of tea on the anniversary of my mum's death, and I get pictures from friends all over the world. Well, it should be really in honour of my mum, a cup of tea and a cigarette, but we're not going to go that far. No. But I think that's probably bigger and nicer than as you say, like a plaque somewhere or a tree or something.
My sister wants somewhere to go.
Okay.
I don't feel I need that, to be honest, because I talk to my mum every day, and I find I feel her all the time. But again, that's what I mean. People are different, and there's no right or wrong, and there's no like path, there's no stages. It's just you just take it as it comes.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunately, and part of me died the day she died, and you have to then. I've not completely changed, but you have to get to know the new you, and the part of me that's dead, I have to learn to kind of be at peace with that, and be at peace with my journey with grief, because it's like a new part of you. You have to embrace this grief.
Have you had any experiences about where people, because we touched on it earlier, where people have tried to help or tried to say the right words, and you almost you just want them to shut up?
Loads.
Oh, really? Yeah, same.
It's like my great aunt twice removed. Yeah, she died. It's like, it's not the same as your mother. Like, seriously, come on. But I try and just know that people are just trying to help. Yeah. And there's certain things you really don't say, but I just try and believe in the good in someone, that they're trying to help me in that particular moment. And, you know, likening it to your great aunt twice removed that you saw once a year at Christmas is not the same as my mother dying, but God bless you and thank you very much.
Yeah.
Shut up. But it makes you really aware then, you know, I've had a friend whose mother passed last year and he wasn't particularly close to her, and he's like, I said, but that then in itself is more of a complex thing for you to deal with, because then there's a whole other thing of, I wasn't close to her, but she died, and should I have been closer? So that's still valid for him to feel. So it's just this ongoing, you know, strange thing that you have to come to terms with, and it's never going to go, because you're going to grieve forever. I'm going to grieve forever. Some days are better than others.
Absolutely. You know? And actually, after episode 1, where my brother and I talked about our mum dying, because we were so lighthearted and jovial about it, I actually received an email for someone who asked what my relationship was like with my mum, and I hadn't even thought about it, because I had an amazing relationship with my mum. Didn't think that from an outside perspective, someone could be like, well, maybe they just didn't get on, and that's why she's laughing and joking about it. I'm not laughing and joking about it. That's just my coping mechanism. It is. And the way,
and no one can say anything about that, you know, whereas sometimes I might cry, or I might, you know, need a day by myself, or I might just want to do something joyous. It's just the coping mechanisms are different for each person at each day, and that's the thing with grief, is it's not, and I saw it again on Instagram, it's this scribbled mess. It's not just this linear stage by stage process that people like to package it up. And I've heard, I've not experienced this, but I've heard, you know, friends saying that they've had feedback from people, well, shouldn't you have got over it by now? You don't get over it.
No.
It's not something, oh cool, all right, okay, I'm over it now. It's my mother. I should never get over it. It's not right for me to get over it. And I saw a brilliant TED Talks, and I've forgotten the lady's name.
Oh, yes. She was
American
amazing.
lady, and she lost her dad and her husband within like a couple of weeks, and she miscarried. And she said, you don't get over it, you just have to learn to move forwards.
Yeah, she was really amazing. I need to post that, actually. Yeah,
so that was brilliant. It's only like, and she's really funny how she talks about it. Because I think she opens up going, so this happened, I'm really good fun, and that's how I felt, like I'm really fun to hang out with, because I'm just like some miserable, you know, cow sat in the back likening, you've had a bad day but your mum didn't die. I must have been really great to hang around with.
Louise is here again.
Brilliant. she's fun to have. But it really resonated with me, because I was just like, yes, and we shouldn't, you know, get over it, but we have to move on, because you know,
because she remarried. She said she remarried and had a child with the new person. She was like, that doesn't mean I'm over my husband who passed away.
I've just moved on. Because that's what you have to do in life. And there was a stage when I was recognizing I was becoming this kind of quite miserable person, that there's a pathway now. There's the dark path and there's a light path, and I have to choose the light path. I have to make the best out of my life. And I tried then, and I got into kind of reading books again. I got into like exercising a lot. I got into kind of the universe type manifestations, doing all those things, and they really helped me get more of a positive mindset,
like daily affirmation things and
as cheesy as, and you know, American as it sounds,
whatever works for you.
I started doing them each day, and I found that really helped just like get me out of bed.
So for those that don't know about the affirmation side of it, because it's again, that's something that more people are talking about, because exactly as you say, I think people sometimes think it's cheesy. Tell us, don't tell me your affirmations, but talk me through that process.
So there's a guy on YouTube called, I listen to a guy called Bob Baker, who is very cheesy American, but you need that sort of motivational person.
Love a cheesy American.
And he's got loads, you can just pick one that's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, but I try and do 3 a day, and you just repeat that, you know, today's going to be a great day, that something wonderful is going to happen. There's a wonderful woman called Marissa Peer who's on YouTube, she kind of asks you to re-engineer how you speak to yourself. So, you know, and I think as women, you always put ourselves down. You're like, oh, my hair, like I said to you, so I wish I'd done my roots.
The first thing you did.
I wish I'd done my roots before I came on. But I should actually say, well, my hair looks nice today. So she you know, how to re-engineer how you talk to yourself.
Okay.
Then that has this outward effect. And then I got into kind of manifesting things and really believing things. And I do believe like that's really helped me. And I also met someone, so that's really helped.
Okay, because you said about not entering into relationships for a long time. Okay.
So I did a few months ago meet someone, which was good, and I wasn't ready to meet him before because I was still processing a lot. I wouldn't have been emotionally there, ready to give him or myself anything. So that's really, really helped as well.
Amazing. And in COVID as well.
And in COVID and in lockdown, yeah.
It can happen. It can happen. I think that the manifesting thing is a word that has become, it's quite a buzzword of late.
Yes, it is.
And one thing that I've done is almost the opposite to what you've said in terms of the manifesting is I am that person, and I think everyone is the same, where I'll come off the phone with a client who has, I had one yesterday, who I was booked in to do a voiceover, and it was an hour and a half I was due to be booked in, but I basically smashed it out of the park and I did it in 40 minutes. So they asked me to reduce my fee. And I said, no, just because I'm good at what I do doesn't mean I need to reduce my fee. No, whatever. Yeah. But this person was so rude to me and I got so angry. So then I messaged my friend. I was on WhatsApp. I was like, you will never guess what happened. Whatever. Then, then I'm wander up upstairs. Then I voice note my other friend. You'll never guess what happened. Then I'm talking a little bit later on, met up with a friend in the same industry. You'll never guess what happened. So that's 3 times I've repeated that negative story out. Yeah. And I need to learn to not do that because if you're repeating it, it's just every time is bringing that negative...
law of attraction. The secret that obviously everyone's read, but it's true. You just start speaking more positive things happen to you, which is what I started doing a few months ago, and I have noticed a difference.
Amazing.
I feel happier, better things have happened for me personally and professionally. So
good.
And if anything, it just gives me a little bit of hope and motivation on the days where I find, maybe I haven't got much, which does happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will still happen regardless of a death or a trauma or grief.
Yeah.
You have good days and you have bad days.
Exactly.
And I think it's interesting that you were saying about you have that choice, the light or the dark path. I always have said, someone said to me once, this was years ago, her name was Yashoda, who I used to work with. She said, Katie, why are you so happy all the time? And this was after losing my parents. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm not. I said, but I do try and make myself every day. I have a choice. And I said to her, because I worked for a PR company at the time. And I said, because if I didn't make this choice to be happy, I'd be under your desk crying, hiding from the world.
And we have all been there, especially if you work in PR.
Oh, yeah.
Rocking.
We've all been there, at 11 o'clock at night thinking, sorry, why did I sign up to this?
But I thought it was absolutely fabulous. We went to parties and just drank solid.
Darling. Oh, we love a bit of PR. But you kind of have to make that choice. And that whole thing with force yourself to smile and you'll put yourself in a better mood. All these weird and wonderful things. I do think they work.
Because there's some days I would have just languished in bed, and that's just not going to help anybody.
For sure. But that's also fine. And going back to what you said, you put on that smile once and you recognise that you shouldn't have
done it.
There you've gone and got help.
So at least I recognise that now that there are days where I don't feel like seeing people, and I've learnt to say no. I was always a yes person. I always run myself ragged seeing people. Now I've just learnt to say no, sorry, I just need some time today, or I don't want to come and meet you. It's nothing personal. I've just not got the energy.
Yeah. And energy is a big thing. You said about Instagram. Now, I have asked you for your Instagram account recommendation. So this is something, whether it just puts you in a good mood, makes you happy, if it's advice, whatever. So what have you got for me?
So my Instagram recommendation is a lady called Idil Ahmed, and her handle is at idillionaire.
Spell it out for me.
Idillionaire. Idillio. It's like a millionaire, but Idillionaire.
Idillionaire, okay. And why do we love her?
We love her because she wrote a book called Manifest Now, which is a really beautiful, powerful book, and it's all about manifestation of your better self. And every day she posts something that just makes you feel happy and joyous. And I always tag people in, they're like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Like today you're going to get a blessing. Something's going to happen for you today. So even if you're feeling a little bit down, just logging onto her Instagram or sharing it with someone, I find makes me feel more positive.
Nice.
So she has got a book, but she's also got Instagram where she gives out these free affirmations, and there's a few of them as well, but this one in particular I think is just really, really nice.
Yeah, there's always those ones that you like as well. Yeah. There's a certain thing. Okay, so Idillionaire. I'll put the links below and all of that jazz and stuff, and I know exactly what I'm talking about. Louise, thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's a bit of a weird one, and even for me as well, because I've gone through like working my way through my entire family, and now at least with Nicole in my last episode, I knew her. We'd never met, although obviously we felt like we've known each other for a really long time. But thank you for speaking so openly about mum, hashtag Be More Marjorie.
Be More Marjorie.
Everybody should do that. And about your, you know, the way you've worked through it and your therapy, and that we're pro-therapy.
We are, and it is a journey. So, and a lot of what I said might not be right for some people, but I just think if I've said one thing today that maybe someone can relate to or has helped, then that's the job done, really.
That is literally...
But it is a grief journey.
Yeah.
And we'll probably be talking at some stage in the next coming weeks or months or years or whatever, and things might change for us. But this is what it is. It is a journey, and I think the sooner you accept that and embrace it as much as you can, I think the better. And I only really did that through professional help.
Oh, that's nice. I like that a lot. So if you have been affected by anything that Louise has spoken about, myself has spoken about today, as I always say, please feel free to reach out. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional. Louise is not a therapist or a professional, but we just want to let you know that you're not on your own, and everyone's going through the same thing. So, or potentially a similar thing. You can reach out. You can send me an email. That's griefreliefpodcast@gmail.com. I'm actually going to look at the camera this time. I never do that. I never look at the YouTube camera. That griefreliefpodcast@gmail.com. On Instagram, it's @thatgriefreliefpodcast, and on Twitter, it is Grief Relief Pod. There you go. So
well done.
Thank you very much. I didn't even look at my screen either.
I've had to have written that down because my memory goes. Now I'm getting older.
So
my memory's
bad.
going.
And really obviously like and subscribe and give us a rating and all of that malarkey. But genuinely, we hope it's helped. And Louise, thank you for telling your story.
Hashtag
Be More Marjorie.
Hashtag Be More Marjorie. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.